3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff. Falcon 9 starting vortex.
His rockets are revolutionizing space exploration. His Tesla has dramatically changed the image of electric cars. His factories are among the largest on the planet. His name is Elon Musk, and he's one of the richest men in the world.
Musk's most valuable asset is his stock in Tesla.
Tesla is worth nearly $1 trillion on the stock market, which is half the annual gross domestic product of France.
In just 20 years, Elon Musk has become one of the most powerful men on the planet.
Just like Tesla and SpaceX, Elon Musk is a brand unto himself.
He has a crazy aura in the tech world. He acts kind of like a guru.
Charismatic and mysterious. A jokester with a reputation for being high-handed. He's like a character out of science fiction, capable of smashing barriers to pieces with outrageous ideas like the Hyperloop.
In the Hyperloop, vehicles will be propelled at very high speeds inside vacuum tubes.
We're talking about 1,000 kilometers per hour, which is comparable to a plane.
In large cities paralyzed by traffic jams, he's redefining the very concept of a tunnel.
He's completely reinventing a sort of personal underground subway.
Circulating through this subway 2.0 demands nothing less than a Tesla. Elon Musk's ultra-connected vehicle.
The Tesla is like a smartphone on wheels. It updates itself using the 4G network without you having to do anything.
In the US, you can even make your Tesla come to you.
Like his cars, Elon Musk's high-tech houses are built to stay connected. Residents can store their own energy and go online via his network of strategically placed satellites.
Of everything Elon Musk has come up with so far, if anything is a golden goose, it's Starlink.
The sky is no limit for Elon Musk, who envisions sending humans to planet Mars in a 20-story tall rocket.
SpaceX is developing a reusable rocket system that will be the largest rocket ever built.
His plan is to send 1 million people from Earth to colonize Mars by 2050.
Will his dream get off the ground? Musk always finds a way of surprising us. To understand the vision of this extraordinary entrepreneur, we'll use computer-generated images and animations to take you on a deep dive into his impressive array of projects. From the concrete to the crazy-sounding, it's a trip into the fascinating world of tomorrow that has already started today. Elon Musk is a product of the American dream. He was born on another continent, into a well-off family in apartheid South Africa.
As a teenager, he was fascinated by ultracapacitors, model rockets, and computers. He mostly kept to himself, focusing on his interests and projects.
Elon Musk is what you would call a geek. He made his first money by creating a video game at the age of 12.
He left South Africa for good at the age of 17, partly to escape military service, but also because to him, America had always been a land of dreams where anything was possible.
Young Elon first landed in Canada, where he worked a series of odd jobs before resuming his studies, at which he did not particularly excel, in Kingston, then Philadelphia. With a diploma in economics and physics, he moved to Silicon Valley and launched his first startup with his brother, Zip2.
He predicted certain technological changes, for example, the explosion of the internet in the 1990s. He became a millionaire after selling Zip2 in 1999, and after that, he came up with the absurd idea of creating the first online bank, X.com.
His new company merged with another one to become PayPal and was eventually sold.
In 2002, eBay bought PayPal for the modest sum of $1.5 billion, of which $180 million went straight to Musk.
Over the next few years, the whole world would come to know the multi-millionaire entrepreneur, an iconoclast full of bold ideas. In order to justify some of his most surreal quotes, in 2021, he admitted on an American entertainment show that he has a form of autism called Asperger's syndrome.
Look, I know I sometimes say or post strange things, but that's just how my brain works. To anyone I've offended, I just want to say, I reinvented electric cars and I'm sending people to Mars in a rocket ship. Did you think I was also going to be a chill, normal dude?
Elon Musk and his off-the-wall personality decided to take on a product with a once disastrous marketing image, the electric car. His Tesla has since become a household name. It's the most commonly sold electric car in the world. Why, in the early 2000s, did the entrepreneur invest in a field that other manufacturers were completely ignoring? How did he revolutionize the electric car? By the end of 2021, it was the most valuable automobile manufacturer on the stock exchange.
Tesla is worth nearly $1 trillion on the stock market. Just to give you an idea, $1 trillion is half the annual gross domestic product of France.
Tesla and Elon Musk. Elon Musk and Tesla. Today, the two names go hand in hand. Yet the company that is now revolutionizing the automobile industry was actually the brainchild of two other people who have been forgotten by history.
The company was founded before Musk by two engineers, Eberhard and Tarpenning, who wanted to revolutionize the electric car market. Because until the end of the 20th century, the marketing industry said that no one would ever want electric cars, that they were too much like golf carts.
Their electric car would be an elegant roadster, capable of reaching 90 kilometers per hour in just 4 seconds. To finance their project, Tesla's founders contacted the rising star of Silicon Valley, a wealthy man who believed in their project.
Why are we making electric cars? Why does it matter? It's because it's very important to accelerate the transition to sustainable transport.
In 2004, Elon Musk invested nearly $7 million in a venture that went against current trends, as at the time, the automobile industry had all but abandoned the idea of making all-electric cars.
When he first met with them, it was supposed to be as an investor. But Musk didn't waste much time before committing a sort of coup d'etat to take over the management of Tesla.
When he decided to invest in electric cars, most automobile manufacturers were convinced that hybrids were the way to go. Few people believed in 100% electric cars because the batteries are so expensive to make.
In terms of batteries, Tesla's founders had a great plan: to use simple lithium-ion batteries to supply all the energy the car would need.
It was a way to repurpose existing technology. They were originally designed for small electronic devices such as Walkmans or things that needed a fairly small amount of energy.
The basic building block is this battery, just 8 centimeters tall. There are thousands of them in a single battery pack. A cooling liquid is circulated around the block to decrease the temperature, which can rise quickly with batteries like these. The battery pack and a motor the size of a large watermelon are placed between the wheels. This creates a better balance, as most of the weight is carried closer to the center of gravity. With the mechanical components reduced to the strict minimum, there's more space for a larger trunk and interior, where the Tesla's crown jewel has pride of place: a 17-inch super-connected touchscreen.
The Tesla is like a smartphone on wheels. It updates itself using the 4G network without you having to do anything. You go to bed one night, and when you wake up the next morning, there are new features in your car. That was unimaginable before Elon Musk, so he has really revolutionized the field.
If it's cold, you can turn on the heat before you even get in the car. In the US, you can even make your Tesla come to you. If it's parked in a parking lot, you can summon it using your smartphone. That's the startup culture. Since it was programmed by a bunch of geeks and software developers, it has a virtual fireplace and all that. There's a sense of fun about the car. It's a way to say we completely believe in what we do, but we don't take ourselves too seriously either. That works really well with younger generations because it reflects their lifestyle.
With very few mechanical parts left and no driving to do, the cars of the future, according to Tesla, will be a place to play games or nap while in motion. Musk's holy grail is a completely self-driving car with level 5 autonomy.
There's no such thing as a level 5 self-driving car today. It's an industry dream that Musk believes in wholeheartedly. He talks about it all the time. And every time he does, he says that Tesla is almost there.
It's a race between automobile manufacturers to see who will get there first. And according to the CEO of Volkswagen, Tesla has a 5 to 10 year head start.
There are 6 levels of autonomy, from 0 to 5.
Level 0 means the car is not autonomous at all.
Level 1 offers only driver assistance, such as cruise control. Level 2 might have park assist. And you just keep adding more and more features until you reach level 5.
Level 5 means the car doesn't have any pedals anymore. You don't drive it at all. It goes from A to B all by itself.
Autonomous cars are equipped with sensors. The Tesla has 8, for example, that do the job of the driver's eyes.
One of the sensors used by automobile manufacturers is the classic GPS, so-called long-distance radar used to map the location of other vehicles and detect how fast they're moving. Ultrasonic sensors are used to detect nearby obstacles. LiDAR, radar that uses lasers, is used to map the environment in 3D, except for Teslas, which use 8 cameras instead. All the data collected is analyzed by the computer.
You have something called processors inside the cars which combine those images, then send the information to a sensor that Tesla calls the dojo, which is an enormous processor that makes calculations using artificial intelligence, then helps the car understand what's happening around it. Then, based on that information, the car will decide to turn, accelerate, brake, etc.
From a purely technical point of view, experts agree that level 5 will be reached in the next few years, thanks to the exponential growth in processor capability. But the algorithms may have a different kind of obstacle to overcome.
As long as everything works the way it's supposed to, having an autonomous car is very nice and comfortable. But in the case of an accident, for example, it's very difficult to determine who's at fault. Imagine you have a self-driving car that has to decide between running into a car coming toward it or turning right and running over a pedestrian. How do you control those choices? Which are ethical?
In the US, the technology is raising some questions after a series of accidents involving Teslas. Elon Musk's company is currently under investigation by US authorities. In France, in 2021, the driver of a Model 3 claimed his vehicle accelerated on its own and that the brakes stopped working. The accident killed 1 cyclist and injured 20 other people at Place de la Nation in Paris. Tesla denies their technology was at fault. According to Elon Musk, the problem isn't the autonomous cars, but human beings. He believes that roads will be safer with artificial intelligence in control.
Is there a risk that at some point there will be one tragedy too many and we'll end up putting this technology aside, saying that a certain level of autonomy is good, but not complete autonomy? Especially because autonomous cars also pose a problem on a societal level. Do we want to put all the taxi drivers and bus drivers in the world out of a job?
Despite multiple ongoing investigations, the company continues to grow at an incredible pace. In 2020 and 2021, the Model 3 was the best-selling electric car in the world. Elon Musk, the first to believe in the end of the era of combustion-powered vehicles, has found an answer to the biggest challenge posed by electric vehicles.
The biggest problem with electric cars, just ask anyone who wants to buy a car, the two main issues are the price and a fear of it running out of charge. Elon Musk understood right away that if he wanted to sell electric cars, he'd also need to create a network so that people who bought Teslas wouldn't have to worry about running out of power.
The other automobile manufacturers decided to release electric vehicles without doing anything about charging stations.
The entrepreneur and man of many superlatives called his innovation superchargers. A sprawling network of charging stations placed in strategic locations for drivers.
The creation of superchargers was a strategic move. It's the equivalent of gas stations for fuel-powered cars. They're usually located in the parking lot of a hotel or a mall. He installed 10 or 15 stations where anyone could come recharge their vehicle.
The other revolutionary aspect of these charging stations is that they are very, very high-powered, which means you can charge your car in less than an hour.
First, in 2012, they were installed in strategic locations between Boston and Washington, D.C., and San Francisco and Los Angeles. They have now spread all across the globe. Today, the network has tens of thousands of charging stations and continues to grow across the globe.
Now there are some much bigger players specialized in energy who are jumping on the bandwagon. But Musk has a pretty hefty lead, both in terms of the locations for the superchargers and also because he's created habits. People with Teslas are used to going to superchargers, and it will be hard to get them to change.
Once the issue of range has been resolved, the other main obstacle in getting people to buy electric cars is the price. In order to compete with the price of combustion-powered vehicles, Elon Musk is counting on a new kind of factory called the Gigafactory.
They're enormous factories. The first one was built in Nevada to produce on a massive scale and thereby cut costs.
After the factory in Reno, Nevada, another Gigafactory was built in New York State, followed by 3 more in Shanghai, China, Berlin, Germany, and Austin, Texas. The Austin Gigafactory, which was inaugurated with much pomp and circumstance in April 2022, covers 930 square kilometers, the equivalent of 450 soccer fields. Elon Musk intends to build more than a dozen gigafactories across the planet.
It's similar to what Toyota did. Once they had been accepted by consumers, they decided to establish a presence in close proximity to the places where people would buy them. It's based on the assumption that consumers are less and less interested in products that are manufactured somewhere else because they want the industry to create local jobs. So that's part of the plan.
Elon Musk's new and improved version of a factory is a gigantic space with immaculate walls, with production lines that are highly automated and connected to be constantly collecting data in order to improve the production process.
What we're talking about is Industry 4.0, otherwise known as digital factories.
Elon Musk is also inspired by his background in physics. So he said if he had to recreate an automobile factory from the ground up, this is how he'd do it. He doesn't want to necessarily copy what other people are doing, because he doesn't think they're necessarily right. That gives him the freedom to innovate in areas where no one else is innovating anymore. For example, in the first step of the process, which is compressing the sheet metal, a step known as press forming, he invented something called mega presses, which are capable of making a large part of the car out of a single block, whereas before each piece had to be made separately and then soldered together by robots. Now the majority of the chassis of the car is made out of a single piece of metal. In the paint shop, he invented a process in which the cars pivot before being dipped into baths of paint, whereas before it was fairly linear. Each Tesla now takes just 10 hours to produce. Today, a Volkswagen takes closer to 20 hours.
Decreased production time and a limited number of models on the market. That's the equation Elon Musk is counting on to produce his cars on a large scale, approach the prices of combustion-powered vehicles, and flood the global market.
Elon Musk's goal, unlike other automobile manufacturers, isn't necessarily to create a wide range of vehicles in different formats right off the bat. His plan is to offer high-performance vehicles, then improve the software inside them, rather than the chassis itself. Once he has a network of cars all over the world, he'll be able to do what Apple did with the Apple Store, which is primarily selling software, more advanced features for the car, etc.
Musk is always on the lookout for new technologies to create the features of the future, and he knows how to capitalize on them. His batteries are a perfect example. Not only do they provide power for his Teslas, but they've also been making their way into people's homes since 2015 in the form of a system called a Powerwall.
Once you know how to make batteries for cars, you also know how to make batteries for other uses. The Powerwall is a battery pack like the one you'd find in your car, with many cells connected to one another. They can be used to store energy either from solar panels or from somewhere else.
The Powerwall can supply electricity to the network inside your home. It stores energy during off-peak hours, then reduces your electricity bill by releasing it back into your network during peak hours. If your power goes out, it also becomes a backup network. Surplus electricity can also be sold back to the electric company. Because in Musk's vision of the world, a network of Powerwalls could become sources of energy that act as a complement to power plants.
The idea is to regulate energy by using all the different sources that are available at any given moment in time. If I need energy to power my factory, I can buy electricity from Mr. Smith next door, from this guy, and from that guy. So again, he's designed it to work as a whole ecosystem, rather than just focusing on selling an electric battery as a single product.
In Elon Musk's ecosystem, the electricity supplies energy to people's homes and cars, but that's not all. To help ease the transition away from using fossil fuels, electricity must also be used to propel vehicles at mind-blowing speeds. In a crazy project called the Hyperloop.
The Hyperloop is a new method of mass transportation in which vehicles will be propelled at very high speeds inside vacuum tubes.
We're talking about speeds of 1,000 kilometers per hour, which is comparable to a plane. So you'd be traveling at the speed of an airplane on solid ground.
Theoretically, the Hyperloop would make it possible to travel from LA to San Francisco in just half an hour, and Paris to Marseille in just 40 minutes. How is this technically possible? Where would these Hyperloops be built? And why do some people believe they will never become a reality?
Elon Musk first revived the idea of Hyperloops in 2013, and we have to admit, we're not there yet. No Hyperloops have been built.
The Hyperloop is an old concept, popularized by science fiction literature.
The idea originated in the late 19th century.
The first description of a Hyperloop to cross the Atlantic was in a book by Jules Verne.
The idea didn't make much progress in the 20th century and was only revived when Elon Musk latched onto it.
New modes of transportation.
In 2013, the entrepreneur, who is very interested in developing eco-friendly transportation, published a paper about the Hyperloop on the internet that caught the interest of certain investors.
Just like Tesla and SpaceX, Elon Musk is a brand unto himself. He's a bankable person because practically everything he touches turns to gold.
He has a crazy aura in the tech world. He acts kind of like a guru. Because of that, today there are a number of companies working on Hyperloop projects, but none of them have any financial ties to Elon Musk.
One of these companies is Hyperloop TT. This American company established their research and development center in Toulouse, France. On a former airbase, they have assembled a prototype tube that's 320 meters long.
The tube will be around 4 meters across. It will be made of steel and supported by pylons 6 meters high, placed every 20 to 40 meters.
Running parallel to the tube and connected to it is one of the most important elements of Hyperloop technology, which prevents friction from air when the vehicles are moving forward. Vacuum pumps.
The vacuum is created using vacuum pumps, which serve two different purposes. First, they create a vacuum inside the tube by sucking up air molecules. The second purpose is to maintain a pressure of 10 pascals, which is equivalent to an altitude of 50 kilometers. Airplanes, for example, fly at an altitude of approximately 10 kilometers, but we can recreate space on Earth inside these tubes.
Just like in space, the cabin inside the capsule is pressurized. They are extremely aerodynamic, designed to reach incredible speeds of 1,200 kilometers per hour.
It looks like a lot in airplane fuselage, made of aluminum and composite materials to create a reliable structure and a comfortable interior.
Inside the tube, when the capsule first starts moving, it will be on wheels, propelled by an electromagnetic field.
The propulsion is provided by the most effective motors in existence, linear motors using two different elements. On the capsule, there's a magnetic keel that interacts with elements inside the tube, copper spools all along the length of the tube. These copper spools will have an electrical current running through them that will generate a magnetic field that propels the magnet on the capsule. By using alternating current, you can increase or decrease the speed of the capsule.
Once the vehicle surpasses 200 kilometers per hour, a second electromagnetic field will be created to levitate the capsule.
It must be levitated because at speeds of more than 400 or 500 kilometers per hour, the wheels on the train would damage the rails. Magnetic levitation is achieved using magnets placed beneath the capsule. They're very powerful magnets configured so that the magnetic field is directed downwards. The magnetic field will interact with elements in the tube structure in the form of aluminum sheets to levitate the capsule.
The first trial with passengers on board took place in the desert of Nevada. On a track 500 meters long, built by Virgin Hyperloop, a company owned by billionaire Richard Branson. In late 2020, 2 company employees served as guinea pigs. The trial was a success, even if the test only reached the modest speed of 174 kilometers per hour. In Canada, a company named Transpod announced the construction of a commercial passenger line in 2027. Will they be the first to make Jules Verne's dream come true? Either way, the Hyperloop will need to prove its economic viability as compared to trains and airplanes.
The problem is that it takes a huge amount of infrastructure. We'll have to reinvent a whole network of roads, which would cost tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, so it's not clear if it's actually economically viable.
While a future Hyperloop may one day connect one major city to the next, Elon Musk, ever the pragmatic businessman, has decided to focus on what's happening inside said cities. Megalopolises paralyzed by traffic jams and pollution.
He wants to solve the concrete problems people face in their everyday lives. Elon Musk lives in Silicon Valley. In his everyday life, he deals with a lot of traffic jams. What can he do to fix that? He can either design flying cars, which are a bit complicated, or try to create tunnels instead.
Elon Musk's new industrial venture began in 2016 with a tweet that sounded like a silly joke.
Traffic is driving me nuts. I'm going to build a tunnel boring machine and just start digging. It turned out it wasn't a joke, because he did build his tunneling machine after all. He started a company called The Boring Company, which digs holes underground to build tunnels.
Just 1 year after his tweet, Elon Musk had already dug a test tunnel on the site of his company, SpaceX. 4 years later, the Boring Company signed their first public contract. An underground loop, 3 kilometers long, located in Las Vegas, under one of the largest conference centers in the world.
He's completely reinventing a sort of personal underground subway. There are escalators that take you tens of meters underground. When you get there, you find a station that feels like a very nice subway station. And there, you have Tesla Model 3S waiting for you. You get in one, and you have a driver who will take you to the other side of the Las Vegas Convention Center.
There's no two-way traffic in the Las Vegas system. Vehicles drive along a single lane, one in one direction and another to come back. The tunnels are only as wide as absolutely necessary.
The tunnels are very narrow. It can be a bit unnerving the first time you go into one. Critics like to talk about what would happen if there was an accident, if a car were to catch fire or something like that. Are there emergency exits, etc.? But since the tunnel sections between each exit are quite short, everything was designed so the tunnels can be evacuated very quickly if necessary.
As usual, with this first circuit, Elon Musk is merely laying the groundwork before improving his product bit by bit.
Las Vegas will end up with a network of more than 50 kilometers of tunnels beneath the city with some 40 stations. And if all goes according to Elon Musk's plan, Tesla's driven by robots. For example, you could go from point A to point B in Las Vegas in just a few minutes by ordering a Tesla on your smartphone.
The Boring Company doesn't intend to stop there. The company engineers have also designed a boring machine intended to dramatically cut costs and production time. These tunnels with a standard diameter are intended not only for cars, but also for pedestrians, cargo vehicles, and even pipes. Once again, Elon Musk is revolutionizing an old, declining industry.
It feels like a repeat of what happened with SpaceX 20 years ago. Musk said he wanted to make reusable rockets. The major players in the industry said it was impossible. Today, with these tunnels, we wonder if at some point his competitors will find themselves in a situation where he will be digging faster and for 30% less cost, which will put them in a very bad position.
Elon Musk is dedicated to revolutionizing transportation and energy for the future, but he also intends to push other limits, namely those of our own planet, by rekindling an old dream that has fallen out of favor in recent years: space conquest.
His plan is to conquer people's minds and souls before he conquers space. There were 500,000 Americans around the launch pad. There hadn't been an audience like that since the Apollo missions.
With Musk, space conquest has once again become a public performance, one of which he's the director. Like in 2018, when he sent a Tesla hurtling through space, making it both a marketing stunt and a bit of fun.
We wanted something that was fun and that felt like you could maybe be there, and that was like the reasoning behind the car and the astronauts in the car.
After selling PayPal, the incredibly wealthy businessman could have kept developing his fortune with the internet. Instead, he decided to make rockets and call them the Falcon, like in Star Wars.
With Musk, his childhood is still very present. He borrows from Star Trek, Star Wars, and Jules Verne. He believes everything he's read in science fiction is possible.
How did Elon Musk make the transition from the world of startups to space, one of the most complex industries out there? And how did he narrowly escape going bankrupt? How has he become such a major player on a scene dominated by the most powerful governments on the planet?
SpaceX introduced a new way of doing business. That was its first innovation. And then the second innovation was reusable rockets. And then a third has been rapidly reusable rockets.
Elon Musk's space odyssey began in 2001, long before his adventure with Tesla. He was just 30 years old, and he was planning to use Russian ballistic missiles, SS-18s, to launch his first rockets.
Musk wanted to buy them for $8 million, but they asked for much more. So Musk said if this is how things are going to be, he'd build his own rockets.
The next year, the young entrepreneur created SpaceX and bought an old hangar in California to start building his own rockets. And since the space industry had thrown a wrench in the works, in 2005, he built his own launch site on an island in the middle of the Pacific, on the Kwajalein Atoll.
The Kwajalein Atoll is very close to the equator. That's a major advantage for launching rockets because the rotational velocity of the Earth is much higher at the equator than at the poles, which means it takes less fuel to reach escape velocity.
I visited Musk at his first factory, and I told him, you should be prepared to do at least 3 launches because the first several are going to fail. And he said, why? What is going to fail? Tell me what is wrong with our design. And I said, I don't know, but I know these things are extremely complex and difficult, and you're probably going to fail the first couple of times.
The 2 first launches were indeed catastrophic failures, and with each passing day on this atoll at the ends of the Earth, Elon Musk was getting closer and closer to going bankrupt.
Bankruptcy was a real possibility because they were spending $100,000 a day. The millionaire's money was starting to run out.
By 2007, he said, okay, I'm going to try one more time, and if it fails, that's it, I'm quitting. Well, it failed the third time too. But he changed his mind. He said, I'm not going to give up. Tried the fourth time, and that's when he succeeded.
It wasn't until September 28, 2008, that a Falcon rocket finally reached the sky, some 100 kilometers above the Earth, which is above the Kármán line, the boundary between our atmosphere and outer space.
Falcon has cleared the tower.
That same year, just 2 days before Christmas, NASA chose SpaceX to send supplies to the International Space Station. With a public contract worth $1.6 billion, SpaceX was not only saved, but here to stay.
SpaceX needed the government program to exist in order for it to succeed. They've also gotten some purely commercial launches, but the bulk of their business has been NASA and the Defense Department.
Despite SpaceX winning the juicy contract, Elon Musk still had to fight with the US administration to change the rules of the game. While the space industry generally negotiated 10% of the profits for variable costs, Elon Musk demanded a fixed price.
NASA, and initially he insisted upon it, I will launch your payload for this much, and don't ask me what my profit is, okay? And it's a better price than you're getting from anyone else, so not complain if I make extra more than 10% profit.
SpaceX's quote was just 1/3 of those of its competitors, and NASA finally gave in. Just 6 years after SpaceX was founded, Elon Musk was welcomed into the very closed circle of space manufacturers. And the rocket that opened those doors to him, the Falcon 1, was a mere taste of what was to come.
SpaceX learned how to make rockets by making the Falcon 1, but it was too small to really be commercially viable. So he went to the Falcon 9, which has 9 engines in its first stage, and it works using kerosene and oxygen.
The second stage is equipped with a single motor and 2 smaller tanks. At the top is a nose cone containing the satellites to be put into orbit. After takeoff, the engines turn off at 90 kilometers of altitude. The 2 stages are separated using a pneumatic pusher system. The second stage engine then ignites and carries the payload to its destination, while the first stage returns to Earth.
First, it comes in almost like on its stomach. So this creates a lot of drag.
Next, the Falcon 9 is returned to an upright position using a system of thrusters and titanium fins. As it approaches the landing site, the thrusters are ignited one last time to slow down the rocket launcher, while the carbon landing legs are deployed. It looks easy today, but the first trials were catastrophic. Sometimes the launcher completely missed its target. Sometimes it arrived on the platform at a terrible angle.
It must be said they failed 5 times in doing this before they were successful.
With successful trials in 2015 and 2016, the Falcon has changed the space industry forever.
They saved 9 of the 10 engines. It's 90% of the rocket is reusable. The cost of space launch, which had been constant at $10,000 a kilogram to orbit since 1970, SpaceX cut it to $2,000 a kilogram, a factor of 5 reduction in cost.
With its low costs, SpaceX has shaken up the whole space industry, forcing companies like Arianespace to come up with their own reusable rocket launcher to avoid being left in the dust. But the ever-ambitious Elon Musk was not content with merely making his competitors sweat by putting satellites into orbit. Thanks to the International Space Station contract, he's entered the big leagues. He's now sending humans into space. For these missions, he uses the Falcon 9 with the addition of a capsule called the Dragon, similar to the one used for the Apollo missions that took man to the moon.
The Crew Dragon is actually fairly similar to the Apollo capsule. It's a bit better in that it has solar panels, so it can provide its own power. The Apollo capsule only had fuel cells. It seats 4, and it could probably seat 6. The Apollo capsule only seated 3. The Apollo capsule was 6 tons. The Crew Dragon is 8. It has superior accommodations.
With a payload area offering 37 cubic meters of storage space, the capsule can transport the equivalent of half a semi-trailer. It's much larger than the Apollo capsule and much more modern than the Soyuz capsule. It's entirely automated with touchscreens and a minimalist dashboard.
So I'm sitting here in the pilot seat.
Elon Musk can't hide his sense of pride when he presents his baby.
As the pilot, you're able to interact with the screens overhead, control the spacecraft, and then we've got all of the critical functions that are needed in an emergency situation as manual buttons.
To launch this capsule into space, the Falcon 9 turns off its engines 2.5 minutes after takeoff. The first stage separates, and 10 minutes later, it's time for the Dragon to head off to the space station in an automated maneuver that takes nearly 20 hours.
It has small thrusters of its own that it can use to maneuver on orbit, bring it to the space station, and dock with the space station. It has a docking port on the front of its nose that can mate with the docking port on the space station, and locks in place, and then you can open up the hatches and travel from inside the Dragon into the space station.
In 2021, French astronaut Thomas Pesquet traveled to the International Space Station aboard the Dragon capsule. As was the case for his predecessors, the trip went seamlessly. The astronaut never had to use a single manual function, let alone the emergency handle.
Obviously, the lever you mustn't touch during takeoff is the ejection seat handle. It's deactivated now, so I can touch it. But during training, we were kind of afraid of this handle. We didn't want to touch it at all. This is where we'll sit for the duration of the trip back to Earth.
The return trip was also fully automated. After activating a series of parachutes, the capsule touched down in the sea, where it was picked up. Next, it will be given a makeover before being reused again in the future. In Elon Musk's high-tech, low-cost model, nothing or next to nothing is wasted. Taking it further, everything must yield a profit. With his high-performance, low-cost rocket launchers, Elon Musk, the wonder child of marketing, has now set his sights on a market that could bring in even more money: satellite internet. His latest venture, launched in 2015, is called Starlink.
Of everything Elon Musk has come up with so far, if there's one thing that could turn out to be a golden goose, it's Starlink. Musk expects Starlink to bring in $25 billion a year. Because of SpaceX, he already has the rocket launchers. He's building the Starlink satellites, so Musk has control over every step of the process. And that's how he'll be able to make so much money.
Elon Musk's target is households located in white zones all over the globe, which is to say, areas without an internet connection.
One of humanity's greatest fantasies today is to be able to stay connected anywhere you go. Elon Musk's idea is to have a constellation of satellites that allow people to have internet all over the world. Most satellites we use for communications are geostationary satellites located at an altitude of 36,000 kilometers. The problem is that because they're so high, there's a lag, and we have a few seconds of delay.
Elon Musk decided to put his satellite 60 times lower at an altitude of just 550 kilometers. At this distance, there's much less lag. Just 1/30th of a millisecond, as compared to 600 milliseconds for geostationary satellites. On the ground, the user is equipped with a connection kit with a parabolic antenna. It sends and receives signals via a Starlink satellite, or rather the Starlink galaxy. Since a given satellite doesn't stay above a single geographical zone, you need lots of them all over the sky to ensure continuity in communications.
It's kind of the opposite of what you might experience when you're in a car and you're connecting to the 4G network. You're always in motion, so you go from one satellite to another. This is the opposite. You aren't moving, but the satellites are, so your connection will be passed from one emitter to the next.
To achieve that, you need a huge number of satellites orbiting around the Earth. Musk is talking about equipping Starlink with at least 12,000 satellites, and there may one day be more than 40,000.
Today, there are a total of 4,000 satellites in the sky. With Elon Musk's plan and those of his competitors, such as OneWeb and Amazon, that number is going to rise exponentially. As a result, the risk of a space collision is also bound to increase, which has some astrophysicists worried.
It prevents scientists from doing their jobs because the network of satellites in low orbit creates light pollution and a huge number of radio waves.
For now, the sky is a bit like the Wild West. The new players in the space industry are putting their pawns in place without any restrictions, and Elon Musk may end up with the lion's share.
Once again, he's disrupting the economic model and becoming competition for every telecom provider in the world.
He claims to be a humanist by wanting to provide internet for everyone, no matter where on the planet they are. But Musk is a businessman with a vision of the future, and he wants to have the money to finance that vision.
His most cherished dream, for which he is prepared to break the bank, is an idea right out of the books he read as a child. Planet Mars. A planet that Musk believes to be Plan B for the human race.
History is going to bifurcate along two directions. One path is we stay on Earth forever, and then there will be some eventual extinction event. I don't have an immediate doomsday prophecy, but it's eventually, history suggests there will be some doomsday event. The alternative is to become a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species, which I hope you would agree that is the right way to go.
To reach this unlikely-sounding goal, SpaceX has had to design an incredible example of power and technology.
SpaceX is developing a reusable rocket system that, once it is built, will be the largest rocket ever built.
It measures 120 meters in total. It's much larger and much more powerful than any rocket that has ever carried people into space before. Even the legendary Apollo rocket launcher was smaller, clocking in at just 110 meters.
The Starship has two stages. There's the first stage, which is massive, which they call the Super Heavy, and the upper stage, which is actually what's called the Starship.
The usable space of this gigantic 50-meter-long shuttle is immense. More than 1,000 cubic meters, enough to transport 100 people. The two main tanks contain dioxygen and liquid methane. Why methane? Because it can be produced on Mars for the return voyage.
The way you would make propellant on Mars is by reacting the carbon dioxide atmosphere with water, which is present on Mars in the form of ice, and you can produce methane and oxygen rocket propellant. It's actually the cheapest rocket propellant. It could potentially make it cheap enough to use for intercontinental travel on Earth.
The combination of the Super Heavy and the Starship vessel has not been tested yet, but the shuttle on its own has already achieved the remarkable feat of a vertical landing. It looks like something right out of the 1950s.
Elon Musk was going to use graphite composites to go for ultra lightweight, but it posed too much complexity. And so he backed off to use stainless steel, which is readily available material. And while it would reduce the performance of the Starship a bit, it'll make it much easier to manufacture.
With a stainless steel shuttle, special fuel, and 29 engines on the Super Heavy alone, the imagination of the SpaceX engineers knows no limits, especially when it comes to refueling mid-flight in order to cover the 60 million kilometers that separate us from the red planet.
There's the Super Heavy, which takes the Starship up to about 1/3 orbital velocity. Then it returns to the launch site. It doesn't go to Mars. The Starship then propels itself the rest of the way to orbit. But now you've got an empty Starship in low Earth orbit. And the plan then is to fly additional Starships. Their payload would be more propellant, which would be loaded onto the first Starship until it has enough fuel to kick out of Earth orbit and fly to Mars.
Musk is focused on the red planet, not only because of science fiction novels, but also because it would be the easiest to colonize.
Mars is known as the red planet because it has plentiful iron oxide in the soil, so it's the color of rust.
First, Mars is the closest planet, and it's also the most livable planet despite the hellish conditions.
High noon at the equator, it can get to about 20 centigrade, but the average day-night temperature on Mars is about -50 centigrade. It has an atmosphere, it's thin, it's about 1% as thick as the Earth's.
If you were to remove your helmet on Mars because the pressure is so low, you'd be dead in less than 2 minutes. Your blood would start to boil, and you can't breathe in the Martian atmosphere.
Before transforming the Martian atmosphere, the first colonists will have to live inside a dome, a scenario worthy of a science fiction novel. Although Musk believes it will be a reality one day soon, if we are to believe his latest tweets.
Humanity will reach Mars in your lifetime.
I actually believe that we will land our first people on Mars before 2030. Elon Musk talks about doing it by 2026 or something, and he's generally quite optimistic in his projections of when things will happen. But I think it will happen.
Musk is also planning to send colonists around the satellites of Jupiter and Saturn. For him, it's just one step towards the eventual colonization of the whole solar system.
The International Space Station, then the Moon, then Mars, then the solar system. Just like this ambitious space conquest, the world Elon Musk dreams of is a world of infinite possibilities where technology is the be-all and end-all. A way of thinking about the world that pushes the limits. Beneficial when it comes to moving away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible. Concerning when it comes to establishing a monopoly over the sky or implanting computer chips in the central cortex of the human brain, driven by a transhumanist ideology. Sorcerer's apprentice and visionary entrepreneur, Elon Musk is everything all at once. Whether you hate him or venerate him, he has so much financial power that he is not to be ignored or deterred. Today, when the stock market is favorable, his personal net worth is massive and surpasses the annual GDP of countries like Finland or Portugal.